The spouses are playing a game where they adjust a plate with a glass of alcohol on their heads, and Bunny closes up the champ. Another couple, Alice and Jack, sneak out and go for a drive where they donuts Jack's car. The next morning, Alice prepares breakfast for Jack, and the two appear to have a picture-perfect relationship. The couple and their companions live in a 1950s fashion community called Victory Town, where the wives all see their husbands off as they take off for work at the same time to go to Victory Base Camp in the desert. Their jobs are supposedly to work in technology. After leaving Jack, Alice remains home while investing time with Bunny and other wives. Then Alice and other wives goes to a dance class instructed by Shelley, wife of Frank, originator of the Victory Project. There, they welcome a lady named Violet, whose husband Bill has also joined the other men to work at HQ. The next day, everybody in the community goes to Frank and Shelley's home as they host a party and examine the another step in their Victory Project. One lady, Margaret, speaks up and says that they are not supposed to be there. Her husband Ted pulls her away before she starts to form a scene. Other ladies' conversation around Margaret being disturbed as she walked her child out into the desert, and he vanished, with Margaret claiming that he was taken from her before she was recouped. Alice goes back into the house during the party, where Jack finds her and begins kissing her. Frank unobtrusively walks into the room and observes them having sex, but Jack doesn't notice and Frank leaves without saying anything. Alice afterward takes a trolley out of town and into the desert. She looks up at the sky and notices a plane showing up to go down and crash into the side of the mountain where Victory HQ is. Alice tells the trolley driver to go there, but he says it isn't part of his route. Then Alice continues on foot and goes up the mountain, where she doesn't discover a plane but instead shows up to discover a mirror. When she touches it, she sees frequenting visuals of drops of blood and ladies dancing in synchronization, in conjunction with hearing Frank's voice. Alice wakes up back in her room, with Jack saying she was home when he returned and was there for hours, in spite of the fact that Alice has no memory of making it back home. The another morning, Alice gets a phone call from Margaret, who inquires her about the plane that she saw. After Alice denies it, she tells Margaret not to call her again despite the latter's supplications. Alice afterward sees Margaret standing on the roof of her house. She runs to undertake and offer assistance, but Margaret looks at her and slits her own throat and falls off the roof. Then some men in ruddy suits appear up to drag Alice away while handing Margaret's body. Seeing her wife panicking, Jack calls Dr. Collins to appear up at the house to check on Alice. Collins states that Margaret required stitches after everybody says that she fell out of her window while cleaning it. After he decides that Alice must be exhausted, Alice holds up for Jack and Collins not to be looking so she can go through his bag and drag out a record on Margaret, which is labeled security risk. Alice goes through the record and finds most of it blacked out with small supportive data, so she burns the record. Alice begins to end up haunted by strange dreams and events. During her dance class, she sees a picture of Margaret crushing her head against the reflect, causing her to crack out in front of everybody. At home, she tries to cook eggs but finds the shells are empty and purged. While taking a shower, Alice slips into the water, and her reflection shows up to see back at her. At night, Alice and Jack go to a major event hosted by Frank, with all the other couples in participation. Frank welcomes Jack onto the stage, where he declares to the crowd that he is promoting Jack to work with the senior counseling board. Everybody cheers whereas Frank begins a chant of, "Whose world is this? Ours." Alice steps out and is found by Bunny. Alice tries to clarify that something isn't right, but Bunny tells her to stop making presumptions. The other day, Alice and Jack host a dinner, welcoming Frank and Shelley, Bill and Violet, and another couple, Peg and Peter. During the dinner, Alice brings up a few things she's noticed, such as the ladies all having the same story about how they met their husbands, and that most of the ladies come from Philadelphia, Chicago, or Baltimore. Alice at that point straightforwardly accuses Frank of being behind something vile, which Shelley chastises her for, but Frank tells Alice secretly that he was hoping for somebody like her to challenge him. Alice afterwards confronts Jack over the circumstance and asks him to leave. He appears to agree, and they make it to the car until the men in ruddy suits appear up and drag Alice out of the car, with her shouting and arguing with Jack to assist, but he can only sit in his car shouting in regret. She is taken to a clinic where a procedure is performed on her. A flashback then starts, showing Alice working as a nurse at a clinic. She is seen living with Jack in a crummy flat, and he is disillusioned that she doesn't want to do anything with him since she works so long and is unimaginably tired. Jack listens to Frank's motivational speeches and is first motivated to join the Victory Project, which it turns out could be a virtual reenactment that the husbands utilize to keep their wives caught to serve their needs and wants. When Alice touched the reflect, she was waking herself up until Jack made it so that she may stay there. He lays next to her while his own intellect is connected to Victory. Back inside Victory, Alice returns after apparently being healed by the doctors. However, Alice argues with Jack once more, who says he did all of this for her, indeed in spite of the fact that she was Substance living her own life of her own office in the real world. He holds on to her, and in a struggle to break free, Alice crushes an alcohol glass over Jack's head, slaughtering him in Victory and in the real world. The higher-ups are alerted to this, and things in the community start to go haywire, such as the road bulbs bursting suddenly. Bunny tells Alice that she knew the truth all along, which even her claim kids aren't real, so she empowers her to take Dean's car and drive to HQ to put in conclusion to things. Alice then drives out into the desert, with the ruddy suits chasing after her. Collins pursues as well, but Alice hits the brakes and causes Collins to collide with a few of the ruddy suits, killing them all. More cars start to give chase until Alice makes it to the mountain. In the meantime, Frank learns of Alice's deeds, inciting Shelley to wound him in the intestine. She says he messed everything up for failing to keep this contained, and she pronounces, "It's my turn now." Alice gets the car stuck on the side of the mountain, blocking the way upwards. The ruddy suits start to climb the mountain to chase her. Alice makes it to the mirror and briefly feels as though Jack is behind her, inquiring her to stay for him. She runs to the reflect just before the ruddy suits reach her. Cut to dark, and the final thing we listen is Alice wheezing as she wakes up within the real world. So, that's the end of our movie. If you've come this far, make sure to give a thumbs up and subscribe my channel. See you later.